Hey class, hope this message finds you well. So articles this week, I'm actually coming to University of Hawaii, stuff that we've done here, although it's not necessarily recent. It's 2016, 2017, and if you got my emails, I got bee stinging, and I don't know if you can kind of see it. It's right here. It's mostly faded, but yeah, my cats decided to torture a honeybee and God's revenge by stinging me. And it wasn't a very pleasant experience. I'm not allergic. I've been stung before, but I went to go look in the mirror, and I had the stinger, and I had to pull it out, and it took 2 tries because I had barbs on it, and of course it got me right there in that area of the eye, and it just wasn't. It was kind of tingling, and the venom was there. So I used the same idea with the jellyfish stings. I actually washed it out a little bit with vinegar first to get rid of any stinging cells that were left over from the barb. And then I just boiled some water in my tea kettle and put it into a bowl and put a metal spoon in the bowl. And then I was just kind of dabbing it. I mean, at first it was really hot, and I just got it right on the, it was 100-degree spoon. It's not a very pleasant feeling. And so I was really just touching the tip with a really hot spoon, and when it cooled off enough, I could push it more like on my eye. And I mean, not enough that I would get a burn, right? I mean, you don't want to get a burn, but that procedure that I followed is basically what you should do with jellyfish, and it works really well for any protein-based venom. So, I mean, some venoms are not protein-based and they won't be neutralized. Bee stings, among other things, they also have formic acid in them, and so do some ant bites have formic acid, and the heat is not going to neutralize that. So, I mean, it's not going to destroy all the venom that'll ever exist, but any protein-based venoms, heat will destroy. And another story about me, I got stung on this finger once from a stingray. It was in Florida, and I remember I was helping my parents with some yard work, and I was all dirty, and my dad was about a quarter mile from the beach, so I walked to the beach, and Florida has this really nice soft silica sand, and I was rubbing my hands through the sand, and then something got me, and it really hurt. I thought it was a stingray right away because it really hurt. I mean, much, much worse than a bee sting. And then I could feel like the tingling sensation down my arms, or just down my right arm, my one arm. And I could also, like, my heart started to palpitate a little bit. I'm like, oh great, that's the venom. So it was, I remember it was after this article was published, and so I went ahead and I mean, mind you, this hurt a lot more than the bee sting, and so I put as hot as I could handle. The bee sting, I was like, I mean, that's not too dangerous. So I was pretty conservative. The stingray sting though, I was really putting heat on there, and just because I really wanted that venom to be neutralized, so, or denatured, I guess. What I mean by denature, so proteins work by their shape. I mean, so a lot of like our body, we're animals, so we get our some of our structure, well, most of our structure is from protein, and also our enzymes, they're proteins, and enzymes work basically by shape. And the way to change an enzyme or any protein shape, you can do it by temperature, you can do it by pH, and you can also do it by adding other materials, so especially heavy metals. So much of the toxicity of heavy metals like lead and mercury come from incorporating themselves into certain enzymes, and they change the shape, and they either work not as well or they don't work at all. So, but temperature definitely denatures proteins, and so does pH. So things like ceviche, you can cook raw fish. So make it safe using fruit juices. Also, lomi salmon does the same idea. It also uses the lime and or tomato to cook the salmon. And of course, the easiest way to cook food is temperature. And what this says here, current jellyfish stings, the recommendation for jellyfish sting and pretty much most venomous things, but especially jellyfish because they have tentacles. First thing you do is you use acid, and the article says vinegar. I personally like using lemon or lime juice because that's even more acidic than vinegar. And so what that does is and the important thing though is to use an acid. Don't use a base, use an acid. Ocean water is slightly alkaline. It has a pH of about 8.5, more or less. It varies. So ocean water is slightly alkaline. You want to use acidic things. Urine, it tends to be acidic most of the time. Has a pH of about 6, so it's not very acidic. Vinegar has a pH of about 3, and it goes by steps of 10. So vinegar is 1,000 times as acidic as urine, and lime juice or lemon juice tends to have a pH around 2, so it's 10,000 times, or 10 times as acidic as vinegar. So those tend to work better. Don't go all the way to hydrochloric acid because then you'll get a burn, right? So it's better to use acetic acid and vinegar, or citric acid and citrus fruits. Those are also much more commonly readily available. And what that does is it shrinks the stinger cells. So biological surfaces, they tend to be negatively charged, and so if you have this big region of negative charge, if you add positive charge, what happens is it shrinks. If you add negative charge to biological surface, it expands. So an acid, in part, to simplify, acids add positive charge, bases add negative charge. So you want to use acid. So use acid and then put temperature on it. And the temperature of this other article I'm going to send, they found that the best temperature is somewhere between 40 and 50 degrees Celsius. So that's right here. Then that's for box jellyfish stings, is 40 to 50 Celsius, and I can tell you that also works for stingrays. It also works for bee stings, and there's still some residual because there's for at least bee stings, there's venom that's also formic acid. I've never been bitten by a snake before, so I mean I know that they have different anti-venoms, but I think that I'm not an expert in venom, but you probably should go to the hospital for that. I went to the urgent care for the stingray sting. And they were surprised it was a hand wound. They say that they're usually feet wounds for stingrays. And they also told me it was a baby stingray because it wasn't a very big stinger. But they said, oh yeah, that's a classic. They said it's a classic stingray wound. And I told them what I did, and they're like saying, that's really good. That's what we recommend. And that's what they said that's what they would do here in the urgent care center. And usually what they do for people that get stung in the foot, they put them in like a sock, like a water sock or whatever, like a sock, and they pump water through it, and they put as hot water as they can handle. That's the major treatment for stingray stings. So it's very common. I mean, this is kind of new knowledge of sorts. I mean, it's less than 10 years old, kind of thing. But these other techniques that are in the article you shouldn't do. This is the best one. Vinegar or acid first, and at least removing the stinger cells, but treating with acid and then treating with heat is the best way to do it. So again, this is not recent news, but it's it fits with what I've been talking about in my life. And I'll give you a preview to next week. I'm going to get the bivalent COVID vaccine booster on Wednesday. So I'll probably talk about the vaccines. Actually, I have an article picked out already for next week about some of the news with the vaccines. So, I'm also very, very pro-vaccination. Actually, I got a vaccine too. I got two vaccines. I got the flu shot and the Tdap, the 10-year tetanus, pertussis, diphtheria. And I hate getting vaccines, but my arm is still sore from. It's not that bad. If I push on it, it hurts. But I hate the tetanus shot in general. But I'm very pro-vaccination. I hate getting them. But I really do believe in them. But we'll talk about that next week. As with all my messages, I hope this finds you well. If you need anything, especially if you're feeling overly anxious, feeling desperate, if you're having a really bad issue with mental health, If you're having any basic needs issues, if you have any academic problems in this course or other courses, or in general, like there's always assorted academic issues people have, right? I mean, with like registration or something like that, that are just not necessarily classroom in things. Feel free to contact me with that. I'll do whatever I can to help you, and all those things. So I'll sign off for now, and I'll get ready for my vaccine next Wednesday. I'm gonna feel terrible. I already know it, but all right. Aloha for now.